Wattpad's Guide to Attracting Readers. Michaela Malone. Finding your niche. Let's begin by addressing the ever-popular theory that if you write what you love, the right audience will find you. Why this can be true, for the majority of new writers it is really difficult to get discovered. This is due to a variety of reasons such as the search algorithm working against you, oversaturation of the market, trends, and etc. For this reason, I feel it is best to start out with something that is easier to write and build up to more elaborate novels later on. One way to get started is to post short stories. For example, you might already have something written at home or even past creative writing assignments that can be posted. Keep in mind that short stories are not the most popular genre. However, these kinds of stories can be listed instead under other genres that fit the theme. Like for instance my own story, Trespassing Has Grave Consequences, fits in both the horror and short stories category. Another way to get started and build your skills is to write fanfiction. Though many of you will disagree, it can be far easier to weave stories together when you already have fleshed out characters and settings to work with. As a bonus, when you base a story on something that is already popular like Harry Potter, Re:Zero, Supernatural, and The Owl House, it will already have a big fan following, which makes it easier to get noticed and accumulate more reads. Just don't take it too seriously and have fun with it. Things don't have to be kept canon unless you want them to be. You can write in funny side story, reimagine your favorite scene, and so on. An wonderful example are the what-if stories that the creator of Re:Zero creates. While these do not take place in canon, it's fun to see what might have happened if the character had taken a different path at certain points of the timeline. Then there is the option of just writing a story in an established world but in another time and place, like how Fantastic Beasts did this with the Harry Potter franchise. Lastly is reinventing. This is when you take something and put your own spin on it. Like I did with my own story, The Secret of the Tides. It is technically a Nancy Drew fanfiction, however, I deviated by updating it to a more modern setting, changed the place at which the story takes place, and changed up the characters. If you want to stay clear of fanfiction, that's fine too. In this case, I would recommend you enter the writing contest on the site and have fun with the writing props. Next, you must find what works for you. I wrote plenty of different stories before finding what kind of story works with my style of writing. Originally, I tried writing fairy tales and fantasy stories, but that just didn't cut it. Nevertheless, I didn't give up and kept trying different things and finally found that paranormal and mystery books worked well for me and were really fun to write. Remember, it is good to be challenged, but if you run out of ideas for a story, it's okay to give up and try to write something else. Then there are times where you have to put down a project and come back to it later. I do think that what you write needs to interest you, or else it will be a chore. I still think it's a good idea to look at what is popular on Wattpad or go to a local bookstore to see what is selling best there. While the popular subjects might not be all that interesting to you, it is possible to layer it with your other interests, resulting in a wonderful patchwork tale. Let's just say, for example, supernatural mysteries are super popular right now, but you love to write love stories. Why not try to combine these two genres into something unique? I have found that a lot of the best stories break away from the norm in their genre and turns into something amazing that stands alone. Some of my favorite examples are Howl's Moving Castle, Once Upon a Time, and Stranger Things. Honing skills and finding your voice. This topic really applies to a wide range of content, but I will try to keep it simple. The most obvious place to start is your English skills. Though I admit that we are all flawed, a lot of readers will stray from stories that are not worded well and hard to understand. To quote one of my college professors, there is no such as a perfect writer. You must keep in mind that with real published works the author normally proofreads the work 3 times, the editor checks it twice, and lastly a few beta readers will look it over to pick out any loose ideas and flaws. Make sure to proofread your work first. One thing I love about Wattpad is that it recommends using short chapters for stories. This fact makes it so much easier to edit. Even if you are not that good at punctuation, it makes a huge difference to make your story flows well and make sense. I like to use Grammarly to catch some of the mistakes that my basic spell checker misses. The most important thing to remember is to find your own voice in writing. You need the reader to fall in love with your writing and style. It needs to be unique and stand out in the crowd. A great way to do this is to use figurative language and smiles. There are many ways a person can do this. My English teacher does this by adding in elements of gullah in the dialogue of her works. She feels this adds character and charm to the work and helps it stand out. I have been told that what stands out the most in my work is the wide range of vocabulary and the excitement of never knowing what will happen next. Many readers have complimented me on my writing style and beg for more updates and new stories. Challenging yourself. Writing is just like art, in the way that it can always be improved upon. Have you ever published a story and then a week later noticed a ton of missed mistakes and been embarrassed? If so, don't worry, that happens to everyone. I like to go back over completed stories after some time to strengthen the story and fix any new issues I find. One way to challenge yourself is to work on fleshing out your characters more. Don't settle for a bland version of your main character. Give them their own personality, style of speaking, and fashion sense. For example, a tomboy-type character would not like being dressed in lace, the color pink, or pigtails. In longer stories, it helps to give them their own interests and flaws. Just think what Indiana Jones would be like without his fear of snakes. It just adds more flavor and gives you more to write about without getting too far off topic. Don't just stop there, build their backstories as well. Maybe your main character's father has never been a part of her life and now the girl has an unusual distrust of men. Or perhaps, the main character's family has a dark history. Next, try to create a sense of mood for each scene. This is what you want the reader to feel as they read each chapter. Like a sense of loss or fear. Keep in mind this can change from chapter to chapter. If you are stuck with writer's block, I find it helps to look up images on Pinterest. This method has sparked tons of ideas for me in the past. Some writers also listen to music to help inspire them. My secret is when my works start to get dry, I add some elements of danger or a plot twist. I sometimes even look up writing prompts and work with those as well. Attracting readers. Unfortunately, attracting readers can be one of the hardest things to do, though as your brand builds this will become easier. First, make sure you have good clickbait for a cover. Find something that suits your story but stands out. It needs to be eye-catching and tells a story. Changing your covers every few months also helps to attract different readers. I suggest having at least 3 different covers to switch throughout the year. I have noticed that companies like Netflix quite often do this same with title images for their content. Expanding your audience. You've done it. All the blood, sweat, and tears you have poured into your writing has gained some popularity. However, how are you going to continue to grow from here? It's time to look into some unconventional ways of expanding your audience. One way to do this is to appeal to readers in a foreign tongue. Why just appeal to readers in your native language, when the world is filled with millions more people that would be delighted to read your work? Most books are adapted, like the one pictured below, into other languages by publishers, and you can do the same with a little help. It might not be the best choice, but Google Translator can be a great place to start. Another way to reach a new audience is to create an audiobook. Let's be honest, many people would like to read but just don't have the time. By putting your work into an audiobook format, it can appeal to people it wouldn't otherwise. Like YouTube user, Maxwell Young, who just recorded themselves reading the book and posted it online. By doing this simple act, the user was able to get an additional 200,000 reads and still growing. I have recently learned there are my other places that writers can post their creations like fanfiction.net, Quotev, and many others that can be found using a Google search. By posting on these sites you can reach a new audience that might not be familiar with Wattpad. Thanks for reading and good luck with your own writing.